Hello, everyone, and welcome to Trophies or Horrors. This is episode 607, and my God, it was 2 weeks of pure hell, but he's back. He's back. Matt, you are back.
You know, after much self-reflection and contemplation, I felt it would appropriate to come back on the night that Tricky had to work to continue the Grinelli takeover.
Yeah, the spirits were felt. You all were here with us in spirit, even though you were on the vacation, because you got more than enough mentions. So, and of course, you heard the clapping. So Yield is about ready to give a standing ovation. He's glad Matt's back.
I have done my part for Super Earth, and I have become a super citizen, and I have joined the last offensive.
Oh, so you finished downloading? Are you able to play it now?
No, it doesn't launch until the 8th.
Ah, so you just pre-ordered it and you pre-downloaded?
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, Helldivers 2 is what Yield is referring to, or I guess we are referring to.
Yes, you are.
Because it kind of snuck up on me. I'm like, wait, I saw your Facebook post, and I was like, wait a minute, is that out already? I knew it was February, but I didn't know it was this soon. I was like, oh, okay. I thought I missed something, but no, I just hadn't pre-ordered it, so.
Yep, comes out the 8th.
Well, I guess we should catch up with Matt since he's missed the last 2 weeks. Matt, how was you and V's vacation?
So for those who don't know, we went on a cruise, and it was a lot of fun. This time we went on Royal Caribbean, and I want to say normally you go to a cruise for the buffet, and unfortunately the buffet kind of let us down this time.
Wait a minute, what? That was gonna be my next question. How was the food? Because usually you're trapped on a boat and you gotta have good eats.
I agree with you, Matt, because the last cruise I went on, and this has been 5-6 years ago, we thought the same thing, that the general buffet food wasn't as good as the time before.
So I've been on Norwegian, I've been on Celebrity, and I've been on Royal Caribbean. And every time except this time, everything was great food-wise. This time there was just, listen, the worst cruise food is still better than having to cook at home. So don't think that I'm complaining too much. But the buffet, which is kind of like usually like a highlight of being able to go and gorge yourself on stupid crap, the selection wasn't that great. The food that they had up there was kind of bland, but that's where the main dining hall and the specialty dining restaurants really kind of had a chance to shine through. And that's where we got a lot of our good food. You know, there were some great meals to be had there. So don't think it was a horrible cruise. It was still a lot of fun. We usually get a balcony, so that way I can sit out there and I sit out with my Switch or my Steam Deck and I play a bunch of games. You know, if anybody can read books or scroll on their phones, I can sit out there and play games and it not be weird. I think that's a valid point.
Wait, did you get some stares? Is that you seem kind of defensive about this, Matt? Has there been a conversation about this before, or did you get weird looks?
No. I just know that there's certain people out there, none of our audience, because I know our audience is the type of people to do this, but it seems to be looked down upon, where if you're sitting out there playing a game, or if you're by the poolside and you're playing a game, meanwhile people can go out there and read books or play card games or scroll on their phone, and it isn't looked upon as weird. But I digress. I got a lot of gaming time in while I was there, and in the end it was a lot of fun until the wife and I tested for COVID when we got back. So there's that.
I wasn't going to get you to share all the gory details, but of course, whatever you want to offer up, you certainly can. But yeah, were there any really good? Because they have did you guys get off the boat at any places like the expeditions they have, or the excursions, like pet the dolphins, or hike this mountain or whatever?
We didn't go on any excursions. A lot of our money was spent on the internet because I have to maintain connection for my job. But otherwise, we did some specialty dining, which is above and beyond what the main dining usually is. And I just did some shopping in the islands. We went to the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, and it was pretty nice. So we really just needed time to get away, and that's what this trip provided us.
Oh, wait, you still needed to be connected for work? You couldn't completely escape?
Yeah, so my job is one that if there is a statewide emergency or something happens, I need to be able to connect and set up meetings and things like that. So unfortunately, it's what I get paid for.
And for the listeners who can't see this, Tricky is in our Skype call, although not on the show, and he's sitting there at work playing video games. He's got a controller in his hand. Meanwhile, Matt's on vacation, and if there's a statewide emergency, he is coordinating meetings and getting everybody together to deal with things. So, yeah, for whatever that's worth, I have both these people on my screen and just see Tricky playing games, and I get a chuckle out of it that Matt can't truly get a vacation. Well, Matt, glad you all had a good time. Sorry to hear you all are sick with COVID. Ashley had COVID and recently, and it kicked her ass. So I know that it definitely is not the most fun time and can definitely knock you out for a couple days, but I'm sure you guys are glad to be home, and you can kind of coalesce at home and heal up at home instead of being with strangers and sometimes mediocre food. All right, fellas. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our updated trophy counts. Now, I'm willing to bet that Matt's philosophy on trophies didn't change on the cruise, and he wasn't out there earning PlayStation. Well, he's playing on a Switch because, probably can't take a PlayStation on the cruise. So, Probably, well, he said Switch and Steam Deck, so no trophies probably earned for him, but we'll still make him read it out just because that's what we do. Tricky is a level 899, total trophy count of 29,836, and a platinum count of 826. I'm level 501, total trophy count of 9696, platinum count of 167 in 166 games. Yield.
I am a newly minted 506 with a trophy count of 9993 and a new platinum count of 182.
That's one more than last week for those of you out there listening. Matt.
So I am still level 220. I'm total trophy count 1309 and still on 0 platinums.
And Sid is level 883 with a total trophy count of 26,508 and a platinum count of 828. Two more. Count them. Two more than Tricky Mick. So in Tricky's turn to try to be legit this year, Sid's maintained that hold on platinums over him. So keep up the good work, Sid. All right. Well, we've had kind of updates for what Yield and I have been playing. Of course, Yield got a new platinum, so I'm sure he wants to talk about that. But again, Matt, you've been away. You said you got a lot of game time in on the cruise. What were you playing while you were on vacay?
I got quite a bit to cover since I haven't been on for 2 weeks, so I apologize for the long diatribe. First and foremost...
I'm glad somebody else will do it besides me this week.
First and foremost, I was a sucker and paid the $10 to upgrade my Last of Us 2 to The Last of Us 2 Remastered. Not necessarily for the story, but I really want to try to get that roguelite mode since I love roguelite games. And so far, it's been fun. I played it a little bit, obviously didn't earn any trophies for it. So, it's a game for me. I don't have to worry about earning bullshit trophies just by starting up a game. On the cruise, I ended up beating Transformers Fall of Cybertron. Decided to finally plow through the game, and I remember I totally forgot, but there is an entire section with Soundwave, and it was awesome because as you're sitting down fighting Autobots, you eject Rumble and Laserbeak to fight alongside of you, and that was just so much fun. But then there's that whole section where you get to play as Grimlock and just stomp Insecticons and Decepticons, and that was a lot of fun too. But I forgot how much fun that game was, and I was glad I was able to go through it again on the Steam Deck. I also played and beat Super Mario Wonder, which I can't gush enough about that game and everything that it does and all the things it brings to the table and the different play styles and the fact that when you get a Wonder Flower, there's a Wonder Flower in every level and it changes dramatically the way that these levels are played. So if you get the chance, just play through it and it's just awesome. I also downloaded and started Super Mario RPG. Now, I never played the original, so this is my first time going through it, and I kind of see what all the fuss is about. It's a lot of fun. It's a very, very simple RPG, very simple mechanics, but it keeps you active in the battles. You have to hit buttons as you're fighting to get bonuses. You could fight without them, but you can at least... do a little bit more damage just by paying attention. Then I also played a little bit more Red Faction Guerrilla Remastered Edition on the Steam Deck, which is again a blast to play. So good job on Jeff Hanna's voice from way back then. And finally, I got the Palworld bug. I got bit. And bit pretty hard because that's what I've been playing for the majority of my time between when I was on vacation and when I got back. I bought it on early discount, so got a couple extra bucks off of it. I've already put dozens of hours into the game. And more importantly is I started up my own home dedicated server for my friends and I to play on. And it's just a lot of fun collecting pals.
Hey, Matt, before you go any further, because I do want to hear about the game, but what's the bug that's biting people, just so people know and can look out for it?
Well, so here's the thing. This game was released in early access, and within the first I think, what was it, 3 days, it sold 5 million copies on Steam. Now, this is a game also available on Game Pass. So this is kind of the exception to that rule that a game on Game Pass kills its sales, because it is now, I think they recently boasted about 19 million players across the globe that are playing it. And the end result is it's a Pokemon-like game, and it is it also has guns in it. So it's been admittedly Pokemon with guns, but it's more than that. It's base building. It is also the collection aspect. It's survival. And when you get to play with your friends and get to actually build up bases and start from scratch, and there's an efficiency level, because what you do is, as you collect pals, you get them to work your base. And there's a kind of like not a min-maxing, but an efficiency quota you're trying to meet, just to make sure that you can keep things up in your base, because you got to keep your pals fed. You got to keep them well rested. You got to heal them if they get injured or become depressed. It's a very adult theme in this game, because you're starting off with bows and arrows, and you're moving up to handguns, shotguns, and assault rifles. And there's 120 pals to collect. There's no evolution like there is in Pokemon. It's just collect pals, but you have to forge all your own items, and you get your pals to help you, and then you can also use your pals. You can ride them, you can fly with them, you can make a glider a la Zelda Breath of the Wild to jump from great heights. There's really no story to speak of, but there's a very basic level of, hey, go find these towers and beat these bosses. That's the key. And again, being in early access, I assume more stuff is going to come down along the line. And it's just been a lot of fun, and it's still in that new shiny phase where you're still exploring and finding new stuff. So as a result, I wonder how long it is going to be until we get updates that really make things matter and keep it fresh, because we saw what happened with Valheim. That was the huge thing. That was the big streamer game, and then they took forever to get these updates out, and it kind of kills the momentum. And that's the problem with buying into games like these so early, is if you don't keep up with the updates, it's going to kill the momentum, and then people are just going to stop playing. But that's what I've been doing. And before we go on, just to recognize the chat, we see Saber Rider, we see Redbeard, Rick. Thanks, guys, for coming in. Saber agrees that Palworld is so good. And Rick, hope you're doing well, buddy. And that's what you got from me.
All right. Well, Matt, I got to ask, because Tricky put this in the chat, I believe. He asked if it's a Pokemon ripoff, because we've seen that Nintendo is looking into Palworld and potentially targeting it for. And I've seen side-by-sides of some of the pals compared to Pokemon counterparts, and a lot of them do look very similar. So obviously, you described the gameplay is not quite the same, but how close is it to Pokemon? Like, is it close enough, do you think, that they could get into legal trouble?
I don't think so. Now, there are some pals that do look eerily close to some Pokemon designs. Is it enough that the average man would confuse what a Anubis is versus a Lucario? Possibly. Whether that's enough to trigger a copyright issue, since there's no fair use clause in Japan, I'm not a legal expert, so I can't say. But, Nintendo is a company that came out there with the Wii and then released the Wii U, which confused a lot of people. And now Pokemon Company, I really think if they were going to do something, they would have done it already. But I think they got so many white knights coming to them, being like, look at this game, they're ripping you off. Pokemon Company had to put a statement out there saying, hey, yeah, we investigate all claims of copyright infringement and act upon it accordingly. I think that message, in my personal opinion, was more, yes, we know, stop sending us mail. We're going to do something if we're going to do it.
So basically, it's not an issue of the gameplay, it's an issue that some of the pals look similar to Pokemon.
Yeah, because the gameplay is, if it's at a basic level of go out the world, capture pals, Pokemon Company doesn't have a copyright or trademark on collection or collecting animals. But the question that is going to revolve around any potential future lawsuit is whether or not the developers who made Palworld used any assets from Pokemon. If they used assets, then they deserve what they would get. If they didn't use assets and some of these items or some of the pals look close, then that's where it gets a little more gray, because, you know, designing is what designing is. If you're inspired by something, you wouldn't have Megadeth if there wasn't Metallica. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. But I don't think Pocket Fair is going to have any sort of real litigation on their hands. If anything, they might just go in and change the design of some pals, and that might assuage any future issues.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's out for Game Pass. You can play it on Xbox and PC, so unfortunately it's not available for PlayStation owners. So I don't have access to it, but, you know, hopefully at some point maybe it will come out on other consoles. Because this is not a developer owned by Microsoft, correct, Matt?
Correct.
Okay. So there is a chance, but, you know, who knows, maybe in the future. Yield, you got a Platinum Trophy this past week.
I have, come on, open back up. There we go. So I've been playing a plethora of games since I haven't been on in a while. I've been messing around with Farm Simulator 19. I've been playing some Rocket League. I fired up my truck driver game because I had picked up the Heading North DLC off the last PlayStation sale and started playing through that. I've been playing some Borderlands, the pre-sequel, the Claptastic Voyage DLC. I've been playing some Mud Runners, was helping Nitro work through that game, which he got the Platinum today, actually. So congratulations to him. I've been playing some Lego 2K Drive. Got the story done. Now it's the long grind for 2 trophies. Played some World of Warship Legends because it was Doubloon week this week. Started KO the Kangaroo. And I don't think I'm a good portion of the way through that game already. And my latest Platinum was Fire Girl Hack and Splash Rescue DX. It was a game my brother suggested for me, and it actually was pretty fun.
I was gonna say, were those like random names you pick, like magnets you picked out and put on the fridge to form a title of a game, or?
It does, doesn't it? It sounds like it.
But what genre of game is that?
So it's the levels are perpetually made, so no level's the same. But it's a side scroller, sort of 8-bit-ish in a sense, and you are a fire girl, and you are fighting fires in different, buildings, the forest, whatever, and you are going after fire monsters, and you spray them down with water, put them out, and keep on going. It was actually a pretty fun game. Simple but fun.
I would assume that your brother would not lead you astray and convince you to play a shitty game that wasn't any fun. It's just
he was like, we were over at his house. Oh, this was sometime last year, and we were talking games. And here, watch this trailer, watch that trailer. And he's like, here, pulls up this trailer. He's like, what do you think? I'm like, actually, that looks like fun. So I had it on my wish list, and I picked it up for like $5, and it was well worth the $5.
Yield, is that all you've been playing this week?
Oh.
Or these I completely forgot that your internet and your computer have let you down the last couple weeks, and I just like, Matt's back. It's like I had completely forgotten then that Yield had not been here these last couple weeks. I guess I just am so used to Yield being here that it just slipped my mind.
And I finished Burning Shores.
Okay, did you find the Lance Reddick memorial?
No, I did not find the Lance Reddick Memorial.
Were you so disgusted by the ending you were just like, I'm shutting this off and never coming back?
I don't know how you couldn't see the ending coming, because that was the thing. I was disappointed in the fact that to me it didn't feel like it felt natural is the wrong word, but it didn't feel like it flowed. It felt like it took precedent over the rest of the DLC story, that this is what's going on and it's going to happen. Whereas I feel that story could have been played out more in the third game instead of trying to shoehorn it into DLC.
Oh, go ahead, Gil. Sorry.
No, that's just my opinion. Other than that, I like the story aspect of it. But again, I feel that since this DLC is 5 only, those who played it on the 4, if they include any of this, which I figure they might, into the main story of the next game, you're going to miss out on the connection or the nods because you might not have played it. So I feel that's kind of a bad thing to do, but again, just my opinion.
I guess they could always do like a previously on Horizon Burning Shores, but I do think one point I will make, Yield, is that the story in obviously the Burning Shores ends in Burning Shores, but that connection that's made in Burning Shores that you mentioned will continue on. So it overarcs into another game. So it's going to carry over, whereas Burning Shores is just Burning Shores. So I think that is kind of the one thing that I would say is that narratively it's going to have more impact and more weight on the Horizon series. So I think that it should have taken precedent because it's probably the most important thing that people will take away from Burning Shores. But that's the way I see it. They're setting up for the future, and therefore it had to be kind of the most important thing. That's the way that I see it. But Yield, did you get all the trophies from Burning Shores?
Yes, I did.
All right. Well done. Well, that leaves me, other than some Rocket League on Thursday with Yield and Nitro, I played some more of A Plague Tale Requiem, and honestly, this is one of those games where I can play like one chapter at a time and then I got to turn it off. Game is just not for me. Again, I don't like feeling overpowered by every single enemy that's in the game, really. And you're not helpless, but you rely more on alchemy than just brute strength. Obviously, Amicia is a different style of hero than what I've played in previous games, but just having to rely so much on the environment and not being able to just pull out like an object and just win a fight head up. That's not really a style of game that I really enjoy. Like, I don't like having to run away from enemies to like reset them so that they don't know where I am, and then I can, sneak up and, not even kill them from behind or stealth kill them, like just like counterattack them to stun them for a bit and then run away again. So I get why they make the knives one use in this game, but just, I don't know, there was just a feeling of being too powerless in this that I just don't enjoy. So while I am going to finish the game and try to get the platinum trophy, because it's not a hard platinum, and if I don't get 100%, it'll eat away at me and I won't be able to sleep at night. I do think that these style of games, while I'm not saying it's bad, I will say that I just don't like how you have to be so stealthy. I want more to be able to stand toe-to-toe with enemies, and that's just not the way this game is built. So, Yield, you played Innocence, you platinumed Innocence. Is the gameplay much the same in that as well?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I figure they're not going to, turn everything on its head and
because you don't have, your only weapon is your sling, basically your sling. Where you can
throw rocks and other items of alchemy.
Yeah, and that is your only weapons. So really, your whole part of the game is to kind of stealthily or use your environment to get around.
It seemed to me, and tell me whether or not you agree with me or not, guys. Well, I tried playing through the first one, and I quit maybe about like 3 hours in. It seems like every situation that you come upon, the game developers have a very specific way that they want you to overcome the challenge. Kind of like taking choice or creativity out of it. Am I off on my analysis since you guys played through it a lot more than me?
I didn't play Innocence, so Yield can speak for that game. In what I've noticed in Requiem is there are areas where it's more open and you can take different paths. But obviously there are certain times when the game narrows and you have to puzzles have to be solved in a certain way, or you have to get by encounters in a certain way. So Requiem, there are a few instances where you do have a little like I said, your area to explore kind of opens up. Which maybe might have been some feedback they took from Innocence, where it's, if that's what you got from Innocence, if that's the one you played, Matt, then maybe that was feedback they got and they said, hey, in Requiem, we want to do things differently. But also Requiem doesn't open up a lot. It is a single player narrative game where you're on a path and you got to get to the end of each level, or each chapter, I should say. So it doesn't open up a ton, but maybe more openness than in Innocence. Yield. What do you think about Matt's point?
He's right. The game has it. You need to get through this part of the game, and this is what you have to do.
Okay. One of my things about this game that annoys me to my core. Some of the characters are fine, but Hugo and Amicia, their relationship, they just beat you over the fucking head with it. I mean, they just absolutely just take a fucking jackhammer, tell you to lay on the ground, and you're just going to take a jackhammer to the head to try to just get this relationship into, your consciousness, or, to get you to feel – it feels like everything is so forced with these characters, and I just am so tired at this point about hearing about the older sister talk about how worried she is about her brother. I made the point last week, but it's I get it. I fucking get it. Can we please not talk about this every 20 fucking seconds? I don't know if it was the same in Innocence, but I've just gotten so tired of these two characters that I'm I don't even care what happens to them. Now, I've gotten to a part of the game where it is kind of more solely focused on them. So maybe in between them, their relationship will kind of be it won't be so forced, and it'll feel more natural, and you can actually have some very emotional, impactful dialogue between the two. But up till now, the characters just annoy me with how much they are constantly complaining about how worried they are. So, Matt, whichever game you played, what really made you stop playing?
I think so. I played Innocence because I think that was the one that was free on PS Plus for a little bit.
Yeah, when the 5 launched.
Yeah, I guess I grew bored of it. Like you said, Amicia and Hugo, it was all about taking care of your brother, and she was so worried about him. And while the rat physics were cool, it just wasn't enough to keep my attention. I didn't feel excited. I didn't feel tense like this game is supposed to make you. I think that's what the game is supposed to make you feel like, that you're in a very dire strait and you got to figure out how to get around these rats, how to get around the guards. And I just got bored by it. I was like, all right, go here, use these rats, use a sling here. It wasn't thrilling enough for me. And I just said, I got other things I can play that'll be a little bit more exciting than this. So that's when I just dropped it.
Do you think that the game is just kind of too slow paced? Because this game also, Requiem, is also got a slow pace to it.
Very slow, extremely slow. The game looks beautiful, but it's not enough to keep me entertained. It's kind of like I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I wasn't surprised by any of the things going on. You go into it knowing that you're going to be underpowered, and you have to be resourceful on getting past a lot of things, and the rats are going to be a big portion of it, set during that time where the plague is huge. So I couldn't buy into the whole thing. I just grew very bored and very nonchalant about the interactions. Like you, I didn't care about the relationship between Amicia and Hugo. I just said, no, okay. And if I don't care about it, I never will, and I'm not going to continue playing a game that's not giving me any sense of enjoyment.
Well, and I think that really the story is kind of why you play these games. Like I said, the alchemy is a cool aspect of the game, so don't get me wrong, I do like that, combining different things to make, weapons you can use to protect yourself. But if you're not into the story, into the characters, that's kind of like the number one thing they're going for. They're trying to build, so you're kind of at a loss there from the start. So Yield, having played one game entirely through to the end, are criticisms fair, or do you think that we just kind of misunderstand what the game is trying to be?
No, your criticisms are fair. I enjoyed the story, so that's why I thought it was really good.
Yes, I mean, so yeah, we're seem to be in agreement that the story is kind of the main thing, and if for some reason the characters don't jive with you, then you're just kind of like, why? What am I doing here?
What am I doing here? Yeah.
Well, let's hope you don't feel about that way, asking yourself, what am I doing here, when playing Foam Stars, as it is one of the PlayStation Plus games for February.
Rip off.
You know what, Matt? Square Enix is really tired of hearing that.
It is what it is. You call a spade a spade.
So is Pocket Pair about Palworld, so I have no room to speak.
Well, I think seems to be a little bit more differentiation between Palworld and Pokemon, but so the PlayStation Plus games for February, this is written by Isaiah Colbert over at IGN.com. Starting February 6th, the following games will be available via PlayStation Plus. Splatoon knockoff Foam Stars. This is Matt's wording, not IGN's.
Welcome back to the Grinelli notes.
Yeah. Splatoon knockoff Foam Stars, which is launching on the service, but will be available to purchase as well for $29.99. No, thank you. I'll take free. If you don't have the service, or once the month's offering ends in March. So after March, obviously, once it leaves the PlayStation Plus free games library, you can purchase for $30 if you so choose. Rollerdrome, a game akin to Tony Hawk with guns, a game that I can vouch for. I got the Platinum Trophy last year. Rollerdrome is very good. So if of any game this month, definitely give that a try. And Steel Rising, a Souls-like game made by French studio. I swear, Tricky, that's the name of the studio. This is not a dig on you. Spiders. Wait, French studio named Spiders? Or did I read that wrong? Spiders. I'm supposed to read Spiders. So yes, Foam Stars, Rollerdrome, and Steel Rising are your games for February, which I know Yield had mentioned on Facebook that he wasn't too happy with this. Like I said, Rollerdrome is a lot of fun. I'll vouch for that game. Steel Rising, haven't had a chance to play it, but who knows? It could. I mean, Souls like very popular game style of game these days, might be a winner. And Foam Stars, I don't know, could be good. It could be a lot of fun. So I'm gonna give it a chance. Hopefully, I don't earn a trophy for starting the game, so then I have to fucking get all of them. But I don't know. It could potentially be a good month, depending upon how good Steel Rising and Splatoon are. Yield, has your feelings changed any, or are you still kind of like, this month may not be for me?
This month isn't really for me. And they all can't be winners, which is fine. But I mean, I might put Splatoon Foam Stars in my download list, but it's not something that I'm going to run to. If I want to play Splatoon, I'll go pick up a Switch and play Splatoon.
And Matt, sir, what do you think of this lineup of games?
All right. So Rollerdrome, I'll vouch. A lot of fun. Very easy to get into, high skill cap that I think a lot of people are going to have fun with. Never heard of Steel Rising, so I can't really say much about this. Foam Stars is where I want to talk about.
Well, your notes kind of told us that.
Because this game, I think, needs to be on PS Plus. And I think it needs to be more than just this month. I think it probably needs to be on one of those higher levels that people just can continue playing until they don't want it anymore. Because, and I said this in chats with other people, here's the thing. Sony takes ideas that Nintendo has already had and tries to adapt them and doesn't do quite as good of a job.
But to be fair, this is Square Enix. This is a Square Enix game.
But it's still on a Sony system.
But is it exclusive to Sony?
I believe so. Hold on. Let me take a look.
What I will say, and you're obviously alluding to as well, PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, which I hope Sony learned from that. Because even though this is a Square Enix game, if Square Enix kind of strays too far from the original formula, like All Stars did from Super Smash Bros. And the Super Smash Bros. Series, you may have a game that people are like, well, this is kind of a ripoff, but it's also not as interesting of a game to play. So yeah.
So yes, it is exclusive. Now the good thing is that it's going to be available on PlayStation 4 as well as the 5. So here's the thing, and it's not just All Stars. And I know Joe Priestley is going to crucify me for this, but also take a look at Crash Team Racing compared to Mario Kart. Like, I'm not saying that Crash Team Racing is bad. I'm just saying compared to the juggernaut that is Mario Kart, it just doesn't hold up.
Oh, sir, we do not agree because Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled is a better game than Mario Kart.
Oh, no.
But I also will point out, because I don't think it's a fair example, because it was made by Activision and it's also it's on the Switch, it's on Xbox, so it's not even a PlayStation game in any way.
Okay, was it originally on PlayStation then?
I mean, it came to all three right away, I believe. Because all the Crash
I thought
games,
there was original Crash Team Racing that was just on PlayStation.
Oh, CTR, yes, that was on, because that was when Naughty Dog made the first one, and they were still, even though they were owned by Universal, they were still making games exclusively for PlayStation.
So therein lies the issue: is that PlayStation tries to get all these exclusives that are doing something Nintendo has been doing better for years, and I just don't see Foam Stars being the breakout success that they need. Is it going to garner an audience? Probably. Some people will probably enjoy it more than as they'll be looking for something different than your CODs or your Battlefields or what else is out there. So maybe it'll garner enough attention. Look at what they did even with their own franchises. Destruction All Stars, which was supposed to be a PlayStation 5 launch title, that died so much quicker. And that was heralded as the next iteration of what Twisted Metal was going to be and how much more fun it was going to be than what Twisted Metal could bring. And it failed horribly. So the PlayStation keeps trying to bring these things to their platform that other people are already doing better, and they're paying the price for it. It's not going very well for them. I'm worried for Square Enix because they need something to be a hit on their hands, because otherwise they're starting to feel a little like EA and BioWare, just pumping out games just because they can pump out games, as opposed to pumping out games that are good and people will buy and play.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before, Square Enix can't really get mad at people for comparing to Splatoon, because you had to see it coming when you were making that game. I mean, Splatoon had been out, we're on the third iteration of Splatoon before this game was even announced, and you had to see it coming. I'm going to give it a chance, and I think a lot of people will, just to see, like, okay, is this really, like, how good is this game? Because, you never know, it could be a lot of fun. But also, I think that people will be quick to write it off, because it is hard to hold an audience these days. If you potentially have, you get a game for free and you play it, not everyone is tied to trophies as much as some of us are. So, they may pop a trophy and be like, okay, well, I'm not invested in this game, I can walk away from it any time. If you're not paying anything for the game, you're just like, you have no real incentive to keep playing. You're just like, oh, I got 2 hours of fun and I can walk away from this. So we'll see how well the game, it's different if you pay $60 for a game, because you may be like, well, I paid $60 for this game and damn it, I'm going to fucking play it. We'll just see how well it goes. But yeah, I mean, I'll definitely give it a shot. It's just, I think that Matt's right. This game, it's going to be hard for them to get people to pay for it. I think they knew that too, because clearly it's a launch game on PlayStation Plus, and Square Enix being, obviously a big publisher, and this being, a decent sized game for them. If they had confidence in it, you figure that they would throw it out there for it's $30. I mean, $30 is not a big game. It's not a lot of money. It's not a full retail price game. So either by selling it at a lower price or having it for free on PlayStation Plus, just to get a base of people in there to start playing it, it does seem like there's not a lot of confidence in this game.
And I think for $30, you're really teetering on the edge to start. People are going to start asking, all right, how much game is actually here? Because that was an issue with the first Splatoon. I will fully admit the first Splatoon was bare bones. And a lot of people complained that it could have benefited from more single player content as opposed to being just a multiplayer game. So for being free and for being $30, I think the expectations are kind of low as to what this game is actually going to offer outside of its PvP gameplay.
Well, now, of course, the downside is that if you are compared to Splatoon, if your gameplay is not as fun as Splatoon, people may drop you right away. So there are, pros and cons, obviously, to making a game seemingly so close or, in kind of the shadow of another game. We'll just have to see how this does. But, I mean, obviously, the quality of, this month in PlayStation Plus obviously does hinge on how good and how fun Foam Stars is. But again, it with a low buy-in or no buy-in, just, hey, hit the download button. People may drop it. It's hard enough as is to keep an audience around, except for outside of a few games. So we'll just hopefully the tail on this game does not rise and then die and just it's forgotten to time.
Some comments from the chat. We're going back and forth about what is better, Megadeth or Metallica. Rick and I have an extreme disagreement. Tricky, I think, agrees with me. Saber does say, graphic-wise, the Plague Tale games are beautiful French Revolution.
They do have a photo mode too, and you will be inspired to take photos every now and again.
Accurate. And then for some reason, Redbeard Rick is saying Alex cursed. Matt didn't. Tricky
the
comes
fuck
says,
I did.
Yeah, Matt didn't tell him I redeemed. Matt said Splatoon twice. Tricky comes back, says Matt is also using the forbidden word. Redbeard Rick says twice from Alex. It's like they don't care. Okay. Anyways, continue with the show, please.
Wait, hold on. Before we go any further, you and Rick do not agree on Metallica and Megadeth. I'm guessing you are a fan of Metallica and he's a fan of Megadeth.
Well, I think we're both fans. He just says Megadeth is better, and I say Metallica is better.
Potato, potato, right?
I will listen to Megadeth just as easily as I'll listen to Metallica.
I do have a question. Where was Megadeth based out of? Are they from the UK?
No, because
they're from Los Angeles. Okay, for some reason I heard Dave Mustaine's name. I'm not trying to say that Rick favors the folks over from the UK, but for some reason I was hearing Dave Mustaine in my head, singing in my head. I was listening to Peace Sells for a second, and I was like, is he from the UK? No, I'm completely wrong. He's just the other coast.
Yeah.
All right.
And I have to, because I got to rep Metallica. Good old Bridge boys, right from Jersey.
I will say, though, who has the better legacy, given some of the more recent music that Metallica has put out and their whole fight with Napster?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Metallica, even though they've changed a couple members, Megadeth has changed members left and right. So outside of Mustaine, I couldn't name any other members of Megadeth. And then Redbeard Rick comes in and says, can we agree Machine Head are better than both? I still can't agree with that, Rick, but Machine Head is freaking awesome.
Hey, there's some common ground there. All right. And I'm sure that all of us can find some common ground when it comes to the game the day before. Hopefully no one in our community spent money on that game. More details emerge on the day before's collapse, more details on the day before's collapse emerge, and they aren't pretty. This comes from IGN, written by Michael Kripe. According to reports from outlets Games Radar and Game 2, an investigation was conducted where 16 former Fantastic employees discussed what happened. According to reports, the game was not always as ambitious as presented. Originally, it was to be a short story-based game. It appears scope creep started to set in as additional features, unrealistic deadlines, overpromises, and unreasonable demands came from Fantastic founders. Reportedly, developmental mistakes came with threats of fines, lack of days off, and extended work hours. So basically making people crunch. So this game, I mean, that would jibe with what the game had put out because Fantastic had previously put out because they put out smaller games. and then all of a sudden they turned to The Day Before, which turned out to be seemingly a massively ambitious game. We have recently chatted about The Day Before on the podcast, so I've kind of shared my thoughts, recently. I believe that when we had that talk, neither Matt nor Yield were on. I think it was in the last couple weeks. I think it was last week's episode. Sorry, folks, the weeks all run. I'm losing my damn mind. Matt, kind of what are your final thoughts on the situation? Because I know it's been brought before, but obviously, there seems to be, and a lot of times when there are issues with games, serious issues with games, there seems to be kind of a disconnect between the people at the top and the people actually doing the work to put the game out. And that's kind of seems to be an overdrive here.
So, yeah, the story came out recently about how some of the developers working on the game didn't even realize what they were working on. Suddenly they're told, oh, well, no, it's an MMO. And they're like, well, we didn't know that. And even this story didn't go into it after it occurred, but the developers because the rumor is that now the developers who, again, closed down Fantastic and had to pay all their debtors all this money and couldn't afford anything, they're now reportedly starting their own new studio. And
what?
Yeah, it's a shit show. And they came out and they put a message out being like, oh, the only reason The Day Before was bad because all these toxic quote unquote journalists were bagging on our game before it ever got to be out, and it created this negative perception. And no, you assholes, the negative perception came from people who bought your fucking game and ended up shitting on it because it was not the game that you were trying to sell. And these people, these people who were interviewed by the journalists show that you kept changing the game, and what you wanted it to be and what you were presenting it to be were not what you were selling. And the proof was there. Everybody showed the trailers. All the journalists out there showed the trailers that you put out there and then showed actual gameplay and said, the stuff you're showing in the trailers is not in this game. And if you have any hopes of putting in this game, the bare bones isn't even here. So for Fantastic devs, I should say owners, I don't want to bag on the devs who worked hard to try to put out a game despite their leadership's malfeasance. You can't hold it against the people who tried to program the game. You can hold it against the people who, like everything else we talk about, shoddy leadership and lack of direction. There's a reason game directors exist. And if you're doing a bad job as a game director, you need to go find another job, because games are a massive thing to try to do. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to end up with a result like The Day Before.
Yield, do you have any further comments on The Day Before? I know this has been a consistent topic on the show, but I want to give you a chance to...
It just sounds like a clusterfuck, because when you've even got... I'm curious as to what brain trust thought that it would be a great idea to keep your developmental team in the dark, and then also to constantly keep shifting gears as you're developing the game, and then turn around and then point the blame outward instead of inward. Somewhere along the line, logic boarded a plane and took off.
Well, I mean, it seems like, the dev team probably was not able to deliver. Well, obviously was not able to deliver on what the founders wanted, which must have been incredibly stressful for the developers and the founders. I mean, I get it, trying to expand your reach, maybe bring more fame and fortune to your company. Well, what they really do is bring more notoriety to it. And I don't know how anyone trusts that company going forward, but you obviously have to respect the abilities of your developers, and you can't just force them with threats to put out a game that there's not a consensus vision for. You can't have those at the top saying, no, we have to get this is the game we need to put out, where the developers are like, you want us to do what? So, I mean, clearly, just if that game company, not that game company, but Fantastic, is ever going to be able to make games again and repair whatever image they do have, we talked a little bit about that last week, but the people at the top and the developers are going to have to find some common ground and repair the trust clearly that is broken between them. So, I mean, this came from 16 former Fantastic employees, because I doubt, anybody who's at the studio now would be willing to talk. But I mean, there's some repairs they have to do there, not just with the video game audience, but also with people within the studio. So,
well, that's the thing. The studio doesn't exist anymore. So if there's people, and Tricky says this, that the new studio is reportedly, allegedly making a phone game, just for the record. Doesn't matter. They're still developing something.
Yeah, well, also, I had heard that they had changed their name of their studio. I mean, there's been all kinds of rumors floating around about the studio that they were making a new game, that after they had, declared bankruptcy, and the fact that they had also changed their name to get away from Fantastic. But I'm sure that the internet sleuths will call them out, and kind of, keep a check mark on them or keep eyes on them so that they can't, just kind of run with people's money and then change their name and expect people just to buy into whatever they're making next. Rocksteady is definitely hoping that you buy into Suicide Squad, although the game has had some issues with early access. The headline reads, Rocksteady gives Suicide Squad early access players $20 in-game following downtime. This was written by Andy Robinson over at the Video Games Chronicle. Rocksteady ran into some early access woes and had to take the game offline shortly into its early launch window. Players who bought into the game early were greeted by a bug that automatically completed the game. Woohoo! Matt, taking automatic platinums to or automatic trophies to a new level. Matt, free platinum.
Can't even get me to play a game that they just give you a platinum.
I don't think Matt, they did that.
Matt over here not wanting to play games that log you. I started a game trophy. You started a game platinum.
I'd have to delete my PlayStation account immediately. I'd feel so dirty.
And you wouldn't just get one trophy. You'd get like 30 or 40 trophies.
For those who think we're serious, I don't think it gave you the platinum automatically, but the game did complete automatically. And once the issue was fixed, Rocksteady awarded the early adopters with approximately $20 of in-game Luther coins. This game, Tricky, unfortunately, not joining us. He's the only one of us who has played it. And he says that the game, he's had some fun with the game. He says it's not as bad as some people have said. He said he thinks people have shit unfairly. And that he has fun had fun with the game, but yet he'd only played like an hour or so he didn't feel comfortable enough coming on and giving an appraisal of it. He wants more time with the game, which is fair, because I was going to have him record something for the show and just give his thoughts on the game, but he wants more time with it, which we can all respect. But I do like the aspect of the game where you fight the Justice League. That's pretty cool to have the Justice League characters like be bosses. That kind of reminds me of, God of War 3, where you go fight all the Olympian gods. It's pretty awesome. But also, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is certainly some controversy when it comes to Batman in the game. They do give a nice little
about that today.
They do give a nice little thank you to Kevin Conroy, who unfortunately obviously passed away not too long ago. But people are not happy with again, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the way that Batman is handled in this game. Yes. Okay. There's a specific scene that everyone's talking about.
Now that I didn't know. I just saw that some people were unhappy with Batman.
And it's quite significant. So yeah, like I said, I don't want to get into too much.
So to add a little silver lining to this, I just read an article somewhere, and maybe I'll find it for next week's episode. Evidently, there might be 2 smaller roles, Batman-based roles, that Kevin Conroy might have voiced before he passed.
Yeah, so I did see that. There's like an animated series one, and then something else.
Yeah, there's something. Maybe not major, maybe it's not extensive, but it's something that this ends up not being his last true role. At least in a release timeline, but still, I think any Kevin Conroy we get is good.
And I think that's part of what the uproar was about, was that people thought this was his last performance as Batman, and people, I think, wanted Batman to get better treatment in their eyes than how Rocksteady handled it in this game. Because I mean, I understand. Like, look, Kevin Conroy, greatest Batman. To me, though, Peter Cullen is the greatest voice actor of any animation ever. Peter Cullen is Optimus Prime. Love it. Like when he was doing an interview for Rise of the Beast last year, and he, was talking about how he, came to be Optimus Prime, and how, he told his brother he's going to be a truck, and he was going in for the interview, and all of a sudden he breaks into the voice of Optimus Prime. Brought a tear in my fucking eye. I'm like, oh my god. So I understand, when your childhood hero or someone you respect as much as people respect Peter Cullen and Kevin Conroy, for not only to have for what happened to Kevin Conroy to pass away young. And then to have, something happen in his final, what you think is his final work, not, match up with how you think it should be handled. I get it. I get the uproar. But luckily, it seems like Kevin Conroy's legacy will continue on will continue on forever. But you'll at least get to hear him in a few more things before, it is the end.
So to catch up with chat, because there is some Rocksteady based comments, Saber Rider comes in with quite a bit. Saying technically it's not Rocksteady when most of the staff has left and original developers have left. He recommends everybody look this up. The original creators of the studio left and took most of the staff with them. So therefore, he says that there's a bunch of newbies developing wearing the skin of Rocksteady. 10-hour campaign confirmed by most reviewers. The blatant disrespect that is done to Batman is so disrespectful that Saber will only buy the game when it goes down to 20. The fact that they do this in Arkham universe is really disrespectful because the games were really beautiful and this game is nowhere near. Tricky comes back and says no disrespect was done to Batman. Saber says major disrespect was done to Batman. Come on, Tricky. I hope you don't have the drug test because you're clearly on some drugs. And Tricky says he's gotten to the point. He was done with respect. Sorry, continue on.
No, you're fine. I've said what I need to say, but I will say that knowing what happens, I'm more akin to side with Saber on this than Tricky, because I do think some level of disrespect was done to Batman. Matt, any comments, sir?
I think from based off of video I watched, I know it happens too. I would have liked it to have not gone that way. Whether or not it was disrespect or not, listen, it's a video game. It has no bearing on the comic universe. Therefore, as far as what Kevin did, Kevin Conroy believed in the project, and that's why he was a part of it. That's all I can say about that.
And Yield, sir, your thoughts on any of this news or Suicide Squad overall?
No, I mean, I checked out on Suicide Squad after the debacle that was State of Play. So it would take someone I know playing the game and me going over and watching it to go, all right, maybe I'll give this game a try, or showing up free on Plus.
I'm going to say something right now that may be a hot take and may piss some people off. Is part of the problem the fact that the Suicide Squad is essentially the jobbers of DC villains? Like King Shark and Captain fucking Boomerang? Like, honestly. Is there anyone really that important in the Suicide Squad? I mean, I know Tricky, hems and haws of our Harley Quinn. But seriously, the Suicide Squad, like, is anyone really excited to see any of those damn villains?
Listen, the movies, I think, proved the point. They were fun popcorn flicks, but were never meant to be taken seriously. It outside of Harley Quinn, listen, Killer Croc, pretty good Batman villain.
When he's portrayed correctly.
Yes.
As a giant fucking terrifying menace.
And not as a guy wearing a scale reptile suit in the movie. And you can only do so much. King Shark was literal comedic relief in the Suicide Squad. So to have him here, I don't know. Deadshot, I was watching Tricky play and I asked him, I said, does it give you any sort of like aim assist or any special powers? And he said, no. So then you're just a guy with guns. Because Deadshot was portrayed as the bullseye equivalent or vice versa. I don't know who came first, but he's supposed to be the guy that doesn't miss. And if you give us the ability to play as a superpowered villain and you miss, then it misses the point of being able to play as the villain. And the overall story, I liked the premise of the overall story, but again, the Suicide Squad, originally named Kills the Justice League, and then now they took that title out, but it seems like you do kill some of the Justice League, at least from some of the things that I'm seeing. I don't know who has what, but yeah, Captain Boomerang, like, really? There's a reason he didn't make it out of the first scene in the Suicide Squad sequel. And it's just like, who the hell wants to play as him? And if there's people that are out here who want to play with him, I'm sorry.
Get a better villain? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm not sorry. I'm not.
If you want to play as Captain Boomerang, you deserve what you get.
Play as who you want, but just, I mean, my God, with all the good villains they have in Batman alone, or, the DC universe, you want me to play as that? It's like, like Gotham Knights. You want me to play as the most uninteresting fucking heroes in Gotham City? No, thank you.
Could you imagine getting to play as Clayface?
Oh, that was so slick.
Being able to use your powers to like
become
just
anybody.
Yes, and then you become anybody to stealth away from the havoc you've caused. That would be fun. And
then there are just sometimes when you just want to go ham with Solomon Grundy and just like destroy everything.
That's not exactly a Hulk equivalent, but yeah, a hulking character that you just cause mass chaos and destruction.
Well, I hate to say it, fellas, but mass chaos and destruction has happened to Black Forest Games, owned by Embracer. The headline reads, Embracer-owned Black Forest Games has laid off 50% of its staff. Haley Williams at GameSpot is the author of this. Black Forest Games, a subsidiary of THQ Nordic, has laid off approximately 50% of its staff. The Embracer-backed group was known for its Destroy All Humans remake, as well as the sequel. Currently in development is the adaptation of the Ninja Turtles' Last Ronin's storyline. I played Platinum both of the Destroy All Humans remakes. That's how I played those games. I didn't play when they originally came out. Pretty good games. Black Forest Games did a good job on them. So when I saw this news that half of the staff, half is now gone. And of course it's Embracer, so I mean, I guess I should have seen it coming, but it's pretty fucking terrible. I mean, we're continuing the trend that started last year. I mean, I guess, it's video games and the layoffs are not a new thing, but just the amount we're seeing definitely seems to track higher than we've seen in recent years. And we're just continuing on where we were last year, and we'll actually have, as a topic of the week, we'll have, an overall number from last year of just how bad it was. But Yield, your thoughts, sir, on this in particular, this story in particular, or video games layoffs in general?
Well, we would be safe to think that this is going to hurt the Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin story, development, because you just lost half your staff, which is a bummer because I was kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy to continue on as a game development company when you lose half of your staff. Or at least
you're definitely not making deadlines.
Or you have to change the scope of your games. Matt, sir, your thoughts?
It scares me because even though I haven't read it, I understand The Last Ronin is a very beloved storyline in the Turtles' history. And the idea was, I think I read that The Last Ronin was going to be like a God of War style inspired type combat game. And like you said, Alex, and to Yield's point as well, is cutting staff, your quality is going to take a hit. Unless you outsource things to a different quality assurance, depending on what was cut, you're going to face so many deadlines and walls that you're not going to be able to overcome. And of course, the current staff is going to pay for it in crunch and in no time off. And again, just management not managing, and the project is going to suffer for it. And as a result, we're going to get a subpar game. I'm calling it now.
And people, like you said, not just The Last Ronin, but people are, the Turtles are pretty beloved. So if you mess around with the Turtles, you're not gonna get a lot of good things coming your way. People will definitely speak out about that.
Look at Shredder's Revenge. That game came out, everybody loved it.
Masterpiece.
And And everybody said, well, we'd like to see different costumes or things. And the developers came out and said, we really weren't planning anything for it. And then they saw the desire and they added Usagi freaking Jimbo to the game as a playable character and some DLC. Like, you make a good game, especially for one as beloved as Ninja Turtles, people will flock to it. And I'm truly scared for the last Ronin with this news.
Well, and also, if you're in any studio owned by Embracer, you're shitting your pants right now. Like, you, at any day, any studio with Embracer could get a notice that either you're closed down or, hey, half your staff is fired. Because they're cutting off limbs left and right to try to fix the financial fuck ups in their history, their recent history. So if I'm owned by anyone, if I'm a developer at Embracer for one of those studios, I'm updating my resume every day, or at least making sure I can send it out and have it ready, because there's a good chance you're probably going to be fired.
I'd start looking for a new job immediately.
Yeah. Sony, always a pretty good bet to find a job for. Square Enix, we'll see. But this news comes from IGN. Sony announces next state of play will focus on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Taylor Lyles from IGN is the author. At the end of the recent state of play on January 31st, Sony quickly announced the next state of play will be held on February 6th and will focus heavily on the highly anticipated Final Fantasy VII Remake sequel, Rebirth. That's really all there is to the news. Me not being a big fan of Final Fantasy guy, but still understanding the gravity that comes with Final Fantasy VII. Probably the most, Final Fantasy, was it 3, 6? Which one was it? 3 here, 6 in Japan? How'd that work out, Matt?
That's a great question.
I think you're right, Alex.
Okay, but few games in the Final Fantasy series carry as much fanfare as Final Fantasy VII. So I understand, the gravity of this game, and obviously Square Enix and Sony are really close partners at this point. I mean, there's been rumors about Sony buying Square Enix. This has never panned out, but if in the future, would it surprise me if Sony ever bought Square Enix? No, probably not, because there's a lot of valuable IP there, and it seems like Square Enix needs a little help. But yeah, this is just kind of another example of how close they are working together as two Japanese publishers. So, I'm honestly not for me. I'm going to watch my stepbrother play Final Fantasy VII, but I never played it myself. I know the Yield. I know your brother is probably real excited about this. Not you so much. I don't know, guys. Do you just in general?
I'll have to ask him. I know he's kind of annoyed at the fact that they're taking their sweet time getting these remakes out.
Well, was he annoyed that it did? Because obviously initially it was one release, but now they're cutting it up into what, three pieces. So is that
3 pieces? So I think he's annoyed by that. I'll have to talk to him some about it. I haven't really talked to him to ask him if he's excited for it. I'm sure he'll watch it eventually, just to see what it looks like. But yeah, I'm skipping it.
Matt, sir. Wait, V plays Final Fantasy VII, or Final Fantasy, right?
Yeah, but not as much anymore. And as a result, she definitely didn't play the remake. And I was very frustrated with the remake. So neither of us will really be touching Rebirth. I honestly, here's my thing. It's been a while since Remake came out. And to finally see Rebirth here, and still no news of how many games this remake is actually going to take, I just don't know when it ends. And I recently saw an interview where they said, somebody asked the studio and said, well, what would a Final Fantasy VI remake take? And somebody goes, oh, that would be like a 20-year project just to get it off the ground. And it blows my mind to think of things like that these days.
I mean, the game was already made. You kind of have the blueprint. Like, yes, you have to rebuild it, and that wasn't a game that was 3D. So obviously, Final Fantasy VII was 3D. Final Fantasy, 6, when people played it on the Super Nintendo, it was not 3D. So you obviously have to change up the game there when building it from the ground up. You have to find it in a 3D space. But 20 years, what do you got? Like 2 people working on it? 2 people in a broom closet working on this game? I don't know. But yeah, Hopefully, Rebirth. Hopefully, Square Enix is able to finish Final Fantasy VII off in a respectful way, and everyone who grew up with it is happy with it. I don't, if you've waited this long for a remake, I just at least hope that everyone who plays it
meet your expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it could ever meet your expectations or how strongly you feel about a certain game, especially one from your childhood. But I just hope everyone's satisfied by it because no one wants to wait that long for a game to come out and then it doesn't satisfy. No one wants that. Well, I was quite satisfied by Alan Wake 2. Obviously, played that game last year, platinumed it. Had issues with some of the narrative storytelling, but overall, I really did enjoy the game quite a bit, and was happy to see the game get some love as far as nominations for Game of the Year and other things go. The game has been updated recently. The headline reads, Alan Wake 2 Update 1.15 lets players make the game less scary. This comes from IGN.com, Ryan Dinsdale. The recent 1.15 update to Remedy's Alan Wake sequel lets players tone down the game's spookiness. Among other bug fixes, players can now turn down horror flashes. Obviously fix bugs is necessary to improve the game experience. You don't want people just to release a game and then let it go and anything's wrong with it. It's just wrong with it. So, hey, good for Remedy for fixing bugs. I get that not everybody wants to play the same, not everyone can handle the same style of game when it comes to jump scares and horror and just kind of tension and all that. But, this is kind of one of those moves, and play the game any way you want. I'm not telling you how to play the game, but you play Alan Wake for the atmosphere. It's a thriller. You want to play for the atmosphere, and just kind of making it less scary seems to just dilute the experience to me. And I guess some people could say, if you play on an easier difficulty, it dilutes the experience, or, if you play with certain accessibility options, it dilutes the experience. So I understand that. It's we've all probably, played a game on an easy difficulty just because, we just don't want a fucking deal. And I get it. Like I said, play games any way you want. For me, I would encourage people to play Alan Wake without changing up the settings, because I think that all feeds into the experience and makes it, the best Alan Wake game it can be. But in the end, play the game you want the way you want. No one is forcing you. If you don't want to tone down the spookiness, no one's forcing you to do it. And if you do kind of find it a little bit too scary and you need to turn it down, the option is there. It's just, for me, I think the best possible Alan Wake is one where it's, gets your blood pumping and you do feel that tension. That was the original intention. But Yield, any thoughts on Remedy making Alan Wake 2 less scary for people? It's very much like hey, we want to get more people to play this game, so we'll at least provide this option.
That's kind of what it sounds like. The whole point of a horror game is to be scared.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine EA Motive releasing this for Dead Space. But, each developer, it's your baby, so you do what you want with it. Matt?
I don't know. I know nothing about the flashes. So I'm sorry, Alex, you played it, right?
Yes, yeah. I platinum trophied it, sir.
Are they? Apologies, it's been a wild couple months. Are the flashes significant? Because the thing I'm thinking of is this maybe like an epilepsy type thing, where they try to reduce it and reduce the chance of something?
Well, usually with that, they and I never found anything too intense. Yes, early on, and you do kind of get used to the tension as you go on. It never, you're always unsettled. It's not like the game is never not kind of scary to you. But you do get used to some of the effects as the game goes on. But usually when game developers, there are issues potentially with epilepsy, they will tell you in the menu, please consult your doctor. Maybe don't consider not playing this game. This would be the first case that I can think of, or I can remember, of developers ever toning it down for that reason.
Okay.
Now they may use flashes more. That is part of the effect of making the game scarier. An image kind of flashes on the screen. You have, the view of you as the player, and then a quick image flashes on the screen, kind of obscuring your view, but not really, if that makes sense. Kind of to feed into the tension and everything. But I just, I didn't find it to be anything that was, I don't know. I guess it wasn't the flashes weren't something I think that would be outside of any other game as far as concerning people with epilepsy.
All right, and that's why I asked, because I don't know about it. I don't know how much of an effect it is, or if it was more for dramatic effect.
It's more for dramatic effect, and usually I think that what covers video game companies is that message at the front, like, "Hey, these issues might arise. Please consider not playing this." Essentially.
Okay. It to me, it's kind of akin to people playing games with arachnophobia mode on. It makes it easier for some people to play. So if that opens up the game for other people to play it that normally wouldn't be able to stand it, then hey, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I kind of, to some point, I agree with you there, Matt, but I kind of disagree. Like Evil West is a game that I recently played that they do have spiders in certain areas, but the spiders don't add a ton to the game. They're just kind of there as part of the setting, kind of add a little bit of creepiness to the setting, but they're not like paramount to anything. And they have arachnophobia setting, so you can take those away. It doesn't really take away from the game. Reducing the tension in Alan Wake, I do feel affects the game somewhat more. It's not just like a kind of like a cosmetic thing, just kind of like a thing off to the side. It's more, I think, integral to the story. So that's kind of where I would disagree with you. Is taking away spiders from one game doesn't really take away from the game at all. It's like taking a few boxes out of a corner of a game in a warehouse. Whereas the Alan Wake's tension is kind of everything about Alan Wake. So reducing some aspect of that, I think, does play a bigger role and is a little bit more deductive from the game. But I mean, like you said, if it's the difference between someone being able to play the game and not being able to play the game, and it doesn't affect my gameplay, then it doesn't really matter. But
okay,
those are my only follow-up thoughts. I am going to live here on air. I'll ask you guys. We're getting towards 1:30. Do we want to wait till Tricky's back on to talk about in depth all the state of play stuff? Although I don't know, we've all talked to Tricky recently.
Yeah, let's cover it. We can skip the last topic.
Well, here we can just go through that real quickly. I'll
What was your guys' overall opinion of state of play?
Well, here, let me get this one article in here, and then we'll jump back to the state of play and
all right,
and get that going. So earlier I teased this, but we got a number from 2023 of the number of game developers who were hit with layoffs. This is from IGN and Rebecca Valentine. Headline reads: 1/3 of game developers say their company was hit by layoffs last year. A GDC State of the Industry survey revealed that over 3,000 game developers, 35% were hit with layoffs in 2023. The most impacted group were in the quality assurance sector, with 22% of QA workers saying they were laid off. Also covered was the subject of AI, where 49% of developers said that generative AI was being used in their workplace in some capacity. So it's not just Square Enix, other developers are leaning on this, hopefully seemingly to save money when it comes to making games. QA hit the hardest. Obviously, you got to be concerned about that because nowadays when they can just release patches to fix games post-release, well, hopefully fix games post-release, having less QA there allows them or increases the chances that they're going to release games, that need fixes later on down the road, and their excuse will be, well, we can just fix them with patches later on. So be careful about early adopting. And I guess, it's when it comes to people making the games, you can only cut so many people from teams before you, like Yield said earlier with the Black Forest games, before you start to affect the games that the company can make. Matt, I know that Tricky wanted to save this until you were on. Obviously, it just seems like tons and tons of people have been affected by layoffs. What are your kind of thoughts on this? Anything you take away from it?
I think, when 1/3 of the industry is hit with layoffs, and we've heard it time and time again that this also might have been a right sizing from the hiring done during the pandemic. You're going to see most of that stuff have taken effect over the last year when the pandemic was ending, as people were trying to get things returned to office, returned to some normalcy. The fact is, these things are still going on. And in 2024, we've had hundreds, if not thousands, of layoffs already in the industry. And as generative AI and true AI start to become more of a household name in developers, you're going to see things like more layoffs where the companies are going to say, well, we don't need people. This system can do it now. And I still kind of do a counter argument to this where we talk, a lot of people were talking about how, you know, as people were fighting for higher minimum wages, you're going to start seeing more self-service kiosks and things like that in things like McDonald's and whatnot. And I argue, I still walk into McDonald's and there's still, I think it was in Canada I saw the most self-service kiosks ever. Here, I'm still not seeing those. As a matter of fact, big box stores might be removing self-checkout soon, realizing that there's too much risk or too much customer resentment over using self-checkouts. So you're still going to see a need for labor. And like I said, this may still have been a right sizing over the hiring boom that tech had during the time of the pandemic. Still doesn't hurt any less to those people losing the jobs. And as a result, you're like I said, a third of the industry reported saying, yep, we were hit, or I was definitely hit. And it's not hurting any less. And I think just like the Embracer layoffs, you're gonna see a poor quality in games. Because let's put it this way. Would you agree with me? And Alex, I'll go to you first.
Every day of the week, except on Mario Kart and Crash Team Racing.
Noted. Would you agree with me that 2023 was one of the best years of gaming we've had in a long time?
Yes, off the top of my head, I would say that yes, as far as, you know, what was offered, and you look at, you know, like Game of the Year, just how stacked that was.
Yield. Were there any other years that you can think of recently that were better than what 2023 had to offer?
For me, it was a down year.
Okay. What year would you say was better than this?
Well, currently, I am looking forward to this year, personally, because there's a lot of games coming out that are in my wheelhouse.
Let's take personally out of this.
Oh, okay.
Because I was not a fan of some of the big games that came out. I didn't look forward to Alan Wake 2 and whatnot. But from a critically achieved, now we've this year also had some of the worst games ever in the way of Day Before, Gollum, Skull Island, King Kong. You can go watch Angry Joe's 2023 worst games of the year, and you'll see plenty of stinkers. I even forgot about some, but pound for pound, the games that were released this year are products that came out that were in development before and through the pandemic. And the point I'm trying to make here is now you're having, and that was as a result of all these hiring boons that the tech industry did. And now what you're having is these downturns that are going to affect games not in 2024, 2025, 2026, and beyond. Those games that are currently in development. And that's what's scaring me for the industry, is that there's going to be some years that are going to be severely impacted by what's happening now. And that's all I was trying to get to.
Well, and just not just video games in general, but adjacent companies, Twitch, Discord, heavily just had heavy losses recently. So it's not just people making the games or testing the games. It's also everything that has to do, that touches the video game industry. You know, like, you know, Mufasa and Simba, everything the light touches is our kingdom. Well, the shit outside that light is now getting hit. So, Yield, last thing before we try to touch on the state of play, do you feel confident, or are you as excited about the video game industry if knowing that we're starting to turn to generative AI to in part make some of our games, even if, you know, it's less than 1% of a game, even if it's just like cover art?
All hail Skynet. No, as I just said, that this is like the first year of the PlayStation 5 where I'm like really excited for games this year. With the way last year ended, with the way this year is starting up, I am very concerned for the industry. Now, with what Jeff kind of shined light on that, and Matt just said about the hiring boom during the pandemic, and now we got to clean house. I hope that's what it is. And this just isn't a small pebble that will make a gigantic tidal wave here in a few years. So I'm concerned. That's just my nature. So I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach right now as the industry as a whole. But
well, with all the layoffs and seemingly the continued layoffs, we'll see if the industry can deliver on what was shown at the State of Play recently. The January 2024 State of Play write-up, this comes from IGN and Logan Plant.
Sorry, real quick. For us just to cover, because we do have some listener questions, but I will say this. We are going to not go over all the non-game related listener questions. So that really leaves us with one from T. Diddy, which was, what original video game music would you consider the best dance music?
The best dance music.
Yep,
wow.
Original video game music. So I'll throw it out there. I'm just gonna say Space Channel number 5.
Was the Dance Dance Revolution music original?
I think some of them, because
like
there
Boom
might have
Boom
been
Dollar?
some games. Yeah, there might have been some games that had actual dance music in them, but for the most part, yeah, it's gonna have been original.
All right, then I'll say Dance Dance Revolution.
first thing that pops in my head was Mega Man.
I'm glad I didn't say Mega Man, but yeah, I will definitely thrash about when I'm working overnight shifts. I'll definitely thrash about the store, listen to Mega Man. It's not dancing, but it certainly feels like that in my head.
And then Thomas, you asked what would be your perfect Transformers game outside of Soundwave becoming the king. It already happened. It's called The Fall of Cybertron.
A good Beast Wars game, not that PlayStation 1 that we got back in the day.
It would have to be a hell of a game to overcome the Cybertron series.
Oh yeah, Matt? Oh yeah?
Yeah. That's another thing we're going to disagree with, Alex.
What if it were just like that, but reskinned for Beast Wars?
Unless it has Soundwave, it's a piss poor Transformers game.
Soundwave is the only requirement to have a good Transformers game? Or movie?
In my mind, yes.
In Matt's mind, yes.
Sir, you are drunk on Soundwave.
Yeah, that's not obvious.
It's gone to your head.
I had 2 figures come in the last 2 weeks alone.
I'm pretty damn sure that those figures are sending like subliminal messages to you at night, so they're like slowly taking over your brain.
It really wants me to build an army.
All hail Soundwave.
There was actually a thread in one of the Transformers forums that was like, wait, Soundwave was super loyal to Megatron and even picked his battered carcass up the battlefield. But the second Astro Train was like, hey, we need to get rid of some weight, he's like, peace out.
I'm surprised you don't have a, because Ravage is like a cat, a big cat, right?
Panther, yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have your own Panther to carry to escort you around. Well, like walk around the city.
I mean, here's the thing. With us having a black cat, I didn't want to use Ravage as the obvious name because I think my wife might have just rejected that outright. So we had to go with something that both of us wanted. But yes, our cat is all black.
But did you buy it for that reason?
No, I bought it because
did you adopt the cat? I should say that's a better
I
way to
adopted the cat. Yes, I adopted the cat because he was all black.
But because of a panther.
5th.
Well, at least you got one past the wife. All right, let's see how many times Sony's going to try to get stuff past us with this state of play. We pulled the complete list from IGN and Logan Plant. At the January 31st State of Play, Sony revealed trailers and gameplay of upcoming game releases. Matt, I know specifically you want to talk about Silent Hill, the Silent Hill 2 remake. So just stop me wherever you want to talk. Yield if there's a game you want to talk about, stop me. But I mean, this is one of the big reasons why I really want Tricky to talk about this because Death Stranding 2 was revealed. Death Stranding 2 on the Beach is now the official title to the Kojima branded game. And, just obviously Sony, or not Sony, but Tricky. Well, Tricky might as well be part of Sony by this point. But being a huge Kojima fan, I feel like he could have brought a lot to this conversation. But I'm sure we'll get his thoughts as time rolls on. Yeah,
because I was talking with a guy at work about this, and we kind of agree on the same thing, is that Kojima's kind of overrated. We feel.
What you're saying is he likes the smell of his own farts.
Yes, and Tricky's losing his mind right now, probably. But they announced Death Stranding. They announced a new thing that he's working on, and why I want to be excited. I was like, I could care less.
Tricky has joined the call. Tricky just popped into the call, giving us the middle fingers. No, I mean I respect what Kojima's done, but I think he overdoes it with the story, and I just have not liked to play his games. His stealth action games have not been my cup of tea.
Yeah,
and honestly, I never knowing what the fuck Death Stranding was. You can't sell me on a game I don't know what the fuck is going on.
It's a delivery simulation.
Listen, I'm not even upset about Metal Gear Solid 2 and the bait and switch that game was. I was fine with playing as Raiden. But the second you start playing a game and you find out that there's a group called the Lolly-Lulelo, and you're like, what the fuck was that?
It sounds like a police song.
It's gone off the deep end. I was like, I no longer know what's happening.
Tricky put in chat that he will burn this podcast down.
That's fine. You know what? You go stick your head under Kojima's butt, so that way when he farts, you can tell him how awesome it is.
Woohoo! Permanent vacation.
So, podcast has already been taken over, Tricky. Not yours anymore.
I will delete you from this call, Tricky. One of the other things announced at the State of Play was Team Ninja's Rise of the Ronin.
I will still get my butt kicked in that game if I pick it up.
Well, Team Ninja doesn't take it easy on people. Ninja Gaiden, it's not going to be a walk in the park. So, enter at your own risk. But that style of game has been successful in recent years. From Software has made a name for themselves and been an incredibly successful developer based on hard as fuck games. So there is an audience there. And okay, this one is one that I'm going to take a little bit of umbrage with. A remaster of survival horror classic Until Dawn. I love Until Dawn. I love Until Dawn. There's a movie going to be coming out. We know that. This is probably going to in some way coincide with that as a way to market the movie. Do a remake. Rebuild it from the ground up if you want to present if you want to present it on the PlayStation 5. Do not do a remaster. Don't remake. If you feel so strongly that a game needs to come back out so people can experience it, remake it. That's all I'm asking. And also, I really hope this isn't just a cheap pop for the movie. I hope it actually is, an improvement on Until Dawn, but until I see a remaster that truly knocks me off my socks off, because really, I didn't really realize how much I loved Shadow of the Colossus until the remake on PS4, because they built it, Bluepoint Games built that from the ground up, specifically for the PlayStation 4. And that's what made me realize that was my favorite game of all time. So until I see a remaster that truly knocks my socks off, I'm going to roll my eyes every time I see that damn word. But if you haven't played it, Until Dawn is totally worth playing. It's a great game. Matt, was that you sucking in some air?
Yeah. Here's my thing. I definitely enjoyed Until Dawn. And what I hope that they work on is the character models. Because in the first game, Listen, I knew it was Rami Malek. I knew it was Hayden Panettiere, but there's just something off about the models that would irked me the entire time.
I still want to know how she ran through the house without her towel falling off.
That towel had a lot more in it than just water.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'll gladly take another shot at saving the cheerleader, because I will tell you this. In my first playthrough, cheerleader did not make it.
Aww.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Am I going to play this again? I mean, I've played it once. I don't think, because the game is so story, it's not really about the gameplay. It's about the choices you make and the story. So having played the story, I'm just going to wait for the movie. I'll watch that. I don't think I'll pick this game up. But again, my reservations about remasters aside, which grows by the day and every time they announce a remaster. If you haven't played it, absolutely play Until Dawn. It's a fantastic game. But do know it is a scary game, or it is a spooky game, so just be prepared for that. Next on the list, developer Shift Up's Stellar Blade coming on April 2026. Dragon's Dogma 2, Capcom's sleeper success. Shadow the Hedgehog joins Sonic in the Sonic and Shadow Generations, an enhanced remaster of the fun Sonic Generations 2011 game, featuring new levels, including the titular Shadow. Silent Hill, the short message released same day. Silent Hill 2.
I did download it. I haven't played the message yet. I'm hearing a lot of people are not super happy about it, but for a free, quick, hey, here's a Silent Hill thing, I think it's worth a go.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well listen to it. What's it going to hurt? Silent Hill 2 combat trailer was shown off. Obviously, Silent Hill 2, a much beloved game. Konami has kind of gone back into their catalog and done a lot of anniversary collections, like the Castlevania one, done, what was the remake they did? They obviously came out the Metal Gear Solid collection. There was one other one, I think, another remake. What did Konami do that was also a remake?
They did do something, didn't they?
They did a Contra.
I'm trying to think of what their other big games are.
I think it was bigger than that.
Oh, it was the Cowbun collection. That's what it was.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. But Matt, you said that you were taking umbrage with Silent Hill 2.
Okay. So first and foremost,
and I will say that I've never played Silent Hill 2, so I don't have the I assume the reverence for it.
Perfectly fine. Which then I ask the question: does it just not look visually good, like a current gen game should?
Honestly, I when that finally rolled through, I was just kind of like, oh, we're finally doing this, huh? Okay, and kind of tuned out.
Knowing what the original looks like in my head, but also knowing what the original looks like actually, playing the original copy of it, which it doesn't look bad, and compare that with like the PS1 Silent Hill, where it's just blocks. PS2 is where we really started seeing some visual features come into their own. This game just, first and foremost, there's two aspects. The visuals, it doesn't look good. Not to me. Not to what I'm expecting a Silent Hill 2 remake should look like. When you're remaking the game from the ground up, it needs to look better than what I'm seeing in the trailer. Number two, the combat looks a lot more fast-paced than what the original had, and the original had it as a very clunky system. You're a guy that didn't really know his way around firearms. You're trying to figure out how to fight off these monsters. It just looked a little too fast-paced for me.
It does. It did look unnaturally fast, especially when they were swinging the bat. Like that's really where you can see it is swinging the bat. It's like almost fast forward or like 1.5 speed. Matt, yeah. I think I can kind of pinpoint what your issue is and how the game looks. The lack of color and the just the darkness. It's a very, obviously it's a horror game, so there's going to be, a lack of light. Darkness is going to play a role, but I think that just the dark settings and just the lack of colors, the bland palette doesn't do any favors as far as how the game looks.
Well, so the original was like that, but and I go back to saying this because the original Silent Hill had the fog designed as a way to eliminate draw distance. And it created this unsettling atmosphere that really worked for the horror portion of the game. And they brought that back in Silent Hill 2, but they obviously had the ability to draw out the distance much more. So they kept it around as a feature of the town. So you go between the daytime setting where the fog is your unsettling, unknown monster area. Like the fog covers what's out there. And then the night changes into darkness, and darkness keeps you from seeing what is out there, and that's why you have to depend on your flashlight. So it matches the setting, but I'm talking strictly about like character models, and everything looks kind of fuzzy. And in the original on the PS2, things looked fuzzy because that was the technology at the time. We have technology that's a lot better now, and it still looks like somebody smeared Vaseline all over the lens. And that's not what I'm looking for in a remake. I want some clarity on the character models, on the environments, the details. Keep the darkness, keep the drabness, because that's what that town represents. But everything just looked like, if you remember when they re-released Star Wars Episode 4 in the theaters, because they had to smudge out the wheels on the land speeder with Vaseline, that they finally got what they wanted to do in the re-release and able to digitally delete all of the smudges that they couldn't get out. It just looks like the original release, that they kept all the imperfections in, and that's not what I'm looking for.
It looks like, honestly, I mean, Bloober Team, I played the medium. I mean, they've done some good work in the past. It does seem like this game would maybe benefit from having Capcom take a swing at the remake, given how much respect they've gotten for their Resident Evil work. And kind of a big miss, because everyone knows Pyramid Head exists. Pyramid Head's not in the trailer. Is that a big miss, Matt? Like, everyone I kind of expected the very final shot to be of Pyramid Head.
He's going to be in the game. There's no way they'd remake Silent Hill 2 without Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head was a central figure to that game, and it represented something very specific. And as a result, you can't have it without Pyramid Head. So you're going to see him in the game.
But like, Pyramid Head is actually terrifying. The other enemies that they show in the trailers look goofy. They look like the toys that were mashed together in Sid's bedroom in Toy Story,
So yeah, and that was actually by design. So the dual-legged mannequins and things like that, those were in the original game. And as a result, I want to see how some of the other things, because they also had the nurses, which were our big staple of the game. So definitely look forward to see how those are implemented. They didn't look bad from the trailer, but I still say that they could look a whole lot better. Like the dual-legged mannequins look too clean to me, when in the game everything in the game represents something specific, whether it's an abstract concept or an ideology. So to bring those all up to date, they've got to match what the original developers were going for. And I'm just not sure Bloober Team is pulling it off the way that they need to.
Yeah, I guess when I look and see the enemies, it's just like the floppiness of the mannequin legs. It just looks kind of comical. Like, Pyramid Head, terrifying, yes. But I see floppy leg mannequins, and I'm like, this just looks goofy. It kind of takes me out of it, I got to be honest with you.
Well, so some of the original combat, the way you see, like, one of the more notorious melee weapons is a giant pipe. And when you swing it at enemies, it like bounces in the original. In the original game, you'd hit it and it would literally bounce back up like you're hitting a rubber bat on the cement or something. So it'll be interesting to see if they can implement it to make it look more visceral, which is what it's meant to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel like we've kind of hit. It doesn't seem like we're that excited for Silent Hill. I don't know. Maybe we're excited and we just care that much, and we're, willing to be a little nitpicky about, not nitpicky, but just kind of like point out the flaws, because it's like, you know what, we expect better. Maybe that's what it is. I'm gonna tell you though, I'm expecting a lot from Judas. And I know V's excited about this too, because she posted something in the Trophy Horse Facebook group about it. Judas, the Bioshock-inspired game from Bioshock creator Ken Levine. This trailer, not that long, a little bit longer than the Silent Hill 2 trailer, but as an introduction to what the game is and how, like, I mean, if you're a Bioshock fan or, you know, Bioshock Infinite, like, you liked any of those games, you got excited as soon as you saw this game. It looks like another Bioshock game. You can call it what you want. It looks dead up like another Bioshock game. You know, the plasmid thing in the hand, you know, just the visual of the you know, the lady coming up to kind of the, I don't know what it was, like the submarine at the beginning, put her hands against the glass, the way the characters are detailed, just the visuals of the game. You see that right away, and it's like, that was made by the Bioshock people. So I'm gonna, unless something happens, catastrophic happens, a meteor hits the developers' studio making this, and half of them get wiped. I shouldn't say that. I don't want to put that there in the universe. But unless something catastrophic happens and this game ends up sucking, I'm going to play the shit out of this game, because I loved the original I had fun with Bioshock 2. I understand it wasn't, you know, people kind of felt like it took away from what the greatness of the original Bioshock. I disagree, but anything Bioshock related, I have loved, and I thought Infinite was the best of all of them, especially with the story. But great gameplay as well. But it's been long enough between Bioshock Infinite and now for me to be extremely excited by just one trailer, just like one look, and what this game can be. So yeah, they sold me in just one quick trailer, and I know that V is also excited. Matt, your better half, or your equal half, is on board. What about you?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the Bioshock series just like she did, and to see him kind of come back to form after some not so great outings, i.e., Lawmakers. Let's show that Ken still has what's in it to make a great game.
You've never talked about Bioshock, and I can only assume that you are not haven't played the games.
You are correct.
Any particular reason?
I just haven't gotten to it.
Well, did you see the Judas trailer, and are you willing to give it a chance?
I need to see more.
All right. I mean, if you haven't played the Bioshock games, I can understand why you would be like, I'm not sold on this. But man, if you love Bioshock, it doesn't take you much to sell you on this game. I'll tell you that much. The next game we have was the Vampire Survival / building game V Rising, comes to PS5 in 2024. Dave the Diver, favorite of Jeff Hanna, is coming to the PS5 and bringing Godzilla with him.
This is the one game announced during the State of Play that I was like, ooh, that looks like fun.
Well, I mean, you saw the trailer. What about the game itself? Was it just what Jeff had said and what you'd heard about the game, or did the trailer sell you?
I forgot it was Jeff. I'm like, that name sounds so familiar. Someone was telling me about this game. I know it. I just watching the trailer and looking like it was just kind of a goofy game that you go diving for stuff, and you had the shark octopus. So it was like, okay, so we're not taking ourselves ultra seriously. Okay, I can go with this. It looked fun. It looked like one of those, what I say, a true video game, and I mean that as in it's just a game that you're there to play it and enjoy it and have fun. It's not going to have this earth-shattering story that you're going to talk about for ages. It's just something to have fun, and that's what that looked like. And then the Godzilla thing at the end was pretty cool.
Yeah, at the end, it's like, oh, by the way, one more thing, the thing they always love to do in wrestling, and it's all of a sudden Godzilla comes out of the water, emerges to the water out of nowhere, and just kind of like towers over your boat, and you're just like, I'm just trying to collect sushi for my restaurant. I don't know what you're doing here. A weird kind of crossover, but I'm intrigued to see what they do with it. I do like the visual, like the viewpoint when you're down, you're actually diving. I think the way they did it reminds me of Song of the Deep,
yes,
released by Insomniac a few years ago. But that's kind of what I visually, when I look at that point of view, that's what I see. Matt, your thoughts on Dave the Diver?
So a fantastic game. And the fact that nobody kind of saw Godzilla coming as part of this adaptation makes me more interested. I haven't bought the game. I've watched people play it. It's a very fun looking game. And Godzilla may be enough to make me pull the trigger finally.
It is coming in April to PlayStation 5. Yeah, Godzilla you expect to see in something like Gigabash because he is in Gigabash. But Dave the Diver, not really something that you would expect. But we'll see where they go with this. Just some of the other games to kind of run through. Zenless Zone Zero, Metro Awakening VR coming to PSVR 2. Legendary Tales from Urban Wolf Games featuring Fantasy Adventure is coming to PS5 VR 2. So we got 2 VR games going on there. And then lastly, to finish up, 2 new trailers for games we've known about for a while coming out soon. A new Foam Stars trailer and a new Helldivers trailer. Of course, Foam Stars, again, will be out on PlayStation Plus this month, and Helldivers, as Yield said, will come out on the
8th.
The 8th. So by the end of, a day after you're hearing this.
Which, being a fan of Helldivers, I was glad to see that that's what we opened up State of Play with. I was like, oh, cool, a game I like, getting the entering montage of video games.
Yeah, I mean, if it's part of a montage, I don't have a deal with that. I don't have a problem with that. But they've also featured Helldivers at 2 other State of Plays, so it's like, this is your chance to feature stuff we've never seen before. So, I don't know. It just kind of felt like you're bringing out that in Foam Stars again. Like, we know about these games, what else? But if it's just like, if it's just kind of like a quick reminder thing coming out, I don't mind the marketing so much. I just don't want it to be too invasive when, like I said, you've already shown us.
It was the opening, when they actually go live. It started off with Helldivers, a trailer, and then it went to Herman Holst, and he's like, yeah, Helldivers comes out February 8th. And some other little Sony pop towards that, and then straight into whatever else they were going to. I think it was the last Ronin. They may have rolled 2 next or something.
Well, I mean, overall, thoughts on the State of Play, Matt?
I think they brought out some good hits. I think they brought out some necessary updates, including Death Stranding, what's going on there. And, some stuff we knew about and some stuff we didn't. So I'd call it a successful State of Play.
Yield, sir, I think that you might go a little bit in the other direction because it doesn't seem like there was a ton there that you were excited about.
So at first, I mean, other than being all cool, Helldivers got to kick off the show, I was kind of like, this sucks. And then as we got more, I think it was because they featured so much of Stellar Blade, and that's not my wheelhouse. But as we got farther into State of Play and we, went through what we went through, I really think that it was one of the better State of Plays from recent. And it featured a little bit of everything. It may not have had something that you wanted, but it had something for everyone. We had third person, we had survivor horror, we had JRPGs, we had PSVR 2. They all might have not have been, gripping titles, but it was the other State of Plays just don't seem to, we focus on one genre and we leave out everything else, where this one kind of went with everything, I felt. So overall, I think it was one of their better State of Plays as of recent.
Yeah, and I came away with, at least 2 games that I'm probably going to be definitely buying, Dave the Diver and Judas, with, how Silent Hill 2 shapes out to, potentially be a third there. I like Until Dawn, obviously that's one of your homegrown games. So or it's one of your exclusive games. Supermassive is the one that made that. So it wasn't made within Sony, but it was an exclusive for Sony. So you got to feature that. But no, I mean, overall, I think that they did a good job of showing us some games we didn't know about, but also giving us, firm updates, like Matt said, on Death Stranding 2 that we needed. So overall, a good showing, having something focusing on Final Fantasy and keeping that away from this, probably a good idea. But I mean, yeah, I think most people can probably find at least one thing in here to be at least be intrigued by. And me walking away with at least 2 games I'm going to spend money on, I think that's a success. So, yeah, I think they did a nice job on this one. But I think that going forward, yeah, you got to partner with your third party partners and you got to show what they're doing. But it's going to become increasingly important as the year goes on. What's Sony doing? You know, what are we getting from you guys? Because an Until Dawn remaster, of one of your PlayStation 4 exclusives is not going to do it. You got to have other stuff. So as if as the year goes on, people are going to want to see more state of play is focusing on what Sony's doing. So, all right. Anybody with any final thoughts before we get out of here this week?
Nope.
Not off the top of my head.
All right. Well, that is going to bring us to our shout outs for this week. Going to go ahead and throw it to Matt.
Alex, thank you for hosting. Yield, good discussion tonight. Shout out to people in the chat. Thanks for coming by. Saber, Redbeard Rick, Tricky and V, who are keeping the conversation flowing.
TD was also there, wasn't he?
Well, that's Saber.
Oh, Saber, that's right.
Yep.
Well, that was the first name you mentioned. I was like, wait a minute, you didn't mention T. Diddy. And it's like, no, Saber.
Yeah, I jump back and forth between names. Shout out to the channel3.gg community coming out to channel 3 to gamify your social media, where we focus on a lot of positivity in gaming. And even though there's some negativity and games people don't like, we still have a lot of fun earning XP talking about games that we love. And finally, shout out to my wife V. Feel better soon, honey. I think I'm going to be joining you soon in the not feeling good soon.
Oh, that sucks.
And Yield, sir, your shout outs?
Shout out to Alex and Matt for recording tonight. Shout out to my wife for finding some discounted sundae cones at Major. That's like totally awesome. Shout out to Nitro for getting his Mud Runners Platinum. Shout out to everybody who was hanging out in chat and download the podcast and hang out with us on social media. Shout out to Nitro and Alex for Rocket League, and a shout out to Homer, Prepare to Die, Earthscum, and the Brain 76 for our co-op Fridays. And a final shout out to Carl Weathers, because your stuff was awesome.
Yeah, obviously that very painful loss for a lot of us this past week. Carl Weathers, yeah, definitely. Hopefully, obviously, I haven't watched Mandalorian season 3 yet, but hopefully, any involvement he had in that was kind of. I mean, you can't kind of. Sometimes you don't see these things coming. But Yield, do they kind of? How do they handle that character in the 3rd season?
How do they handle it? Well, I mean, he's an integral part, as much as you want to say, with the Mandalorian universe. It'll be interesting what they do with it going forward in season 4, if there is one, or the movie. Because you would figure that he would play a role in it, either one. So it'll be interesting to see what we do now. Because I was thinking about this the other day. Gina Carano's already getting kicked out, and all you really got left, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, is that Rebel pilot that's kind of been in a few episodes. And Bo-Katan, there's really no one else. So it'll just be kind of interesting to see what we do.
Him playing Apollo Creed in the Rocky movies, after what happens in Rocky 4, I always hope that he would outlive Dolph Lundgren. Like, Dolph Lundgren would live to be like 100, and Carl Weathers would be like 101 to be like, yeah, Carl Weathers did it. Apollo Creed won in the end.
And I also found out, and I didn't know this, that Carl Weathers was the voice of the UN general, or it may have been AN general. I forget how it was worded in Mercenaries Playground of Destruction.
I mean, looking back, there's probably starting in that PS2 era, PS3. There's probably a lot of people that you don't realize are voice actors for video games, and you could look back at the cast list and be like, hey, this person took this part. Very interesting. But yeah, I think we all join Yield in that, and giving a one final salute to Carl Weathers. Fantastic career, and just it's whether it was Happy Gilmore or it was Predator. Yeah, you always had a good reason to like Carl Weathers. So definitely a loss that hurts quite a bit. Give a shout out to our community, the fuel to the fire, this trophy whores. Thank you all for continuing to support us into 2024. The show does not exist without you all. You all keep us running, even on the nights when we may be like, you know what, it's wintertime and it's drab out and I really don't feel like doing this. But you know what, the community, we're here for them and they're there for us. So we're going to go do this thing. Shout out to Tricky, who could not be here tonight, but I'm sure is, planning our demises for all the shit we talked about Hideo Kojima. Shout out to Matt. Welcome back, sir. And a shout out to Yield. Yield did not get a proper vacay like Matt and V did. He got a bit of a vacation from the computer and the internet. So I'm glad everything got fixed, sir.
Yeah. It was the strangest thing because the TV could stream, the PlayStation would work on the internet, but
thank God.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a total loss, but yeah, the computer and the phone wouldn't connect to the internet. So I don't know what the deal was. Maybe it was an Apple thing. I don't know.
As long as I can still sync my trophies, Matt.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean, sir?
The pain is real. You don't understand. Matt's over there like you.
You know, it worked offline all week. My Steam Deck.
Hey, I can still play offline. I just can't sync what I earn.
That would be my personal hell, Matt. You want to listen to this shit? I sync my PlayStation trophies every time I earn one. How about that?
I don't do that. I wait until I'm done playing.
You know what we call?
I don't want to lose anything.
You know what we call that, sir? An addiction.
Obsessive compulsive. Obsessive compulsive.
I was going to say obsessive compulsive, but okay, addiction would work too.
A disorder. We call that a disorder.
All right, Alex, you do realize your PlayStation 5 auto syncs.
I'm pretty sure I turned that off.
Oh, okay then.
Because when I had to delete my profile from PlayStation 3 because Ashley earned trophies on my account accidentally for playing one of the Dragon Age games, so I had to completely delete my profile. So ever since then, because we have multiple people playing on the console, I don't auto upload my trophies, or I don't auto sync, because just in case, I will delete my profile.
So let me ask you this: do you have your system set up to auto log into your profile?
I do set up for a password, so I do have a password. But
I was gonna say that would keep somebody from accidentally playing on your profile.
True, but also like the password is our anniversary, so she knows it. So yeah, I just that whole thing with the PS3 scared the dickens out of me, so I don't mess around. And last but not least, give a shout out to my awesome and loving girlfriend Ashley, who is very careful now about signing into whose profile on the PlayStation. But yeah, I love you, hun. And yeah, that is going to finish up our shout outs for the week. Thank you all very much for joining us. Welcome back to Matt, Yield, and V. V, thank you for running everything in the background while Tricky was out this week. And thank you for listening to episode 607. We will see you all next week. And until then, happy trophy hunt.
See ya.
All hail Megatron.
Later.